amps versus solid state. Now, this is a debate that will not end. It's like Mac versus PC. It's just not gonna change anything. It doesn't matter what anybody says or does. The argument's never going to be settled. Now, I did a video a couple months ago at 42 Gear Street with my good friend Mendel, where we looked at the Orange Super Crush 100. I gotta say, I was incredibly impressed by that amp. And I thought, well, this is so good. Who the hell needs tubes? And you guys definitely chimed in with a whole bunch of, yeah, how dare I ask the question, are tubes really necessary, or are tubes kind of over and done? And yeah, you guys were pretty upset by that statement, but I think a lot of guys just kind of ignored just how good the Orange amp sounded. And this is coming from a guy who's a tube amp fan. I mean, I got a whole wall of them over here. But I also really enjoy solid state amps as well. I mean, like, I've got a Gallion Kruger, and I've even got a Sun Beta Lead. So I thought, why don't we do a little bit of a shootout? So reached out to my friends at Orange Amps, and they were nice enough to actually send me a Super Crush 100. This is actually, I think, the first Orange amp I've had in the studio here. Well, besides the one we dropped off the crane there at TGU there a couple of years ago. What was that? That was the Brent Hines Terror. That one never quite worked as well as it did when we first plugged it in. But anyway, that's beside the point. Oh, here it is. This is the Orange Super Crush 100. It's a heavy little bastard, that's for sure. But, you know, it's got all the typical Orange controls. 100-watt solid-state amp. Pretty damn heavy for a solid-state amp, but I gotta say, I was really blown away by the sounds of this little bastard. I was super impressed with just what it can do. So the big question is, how well does it stack up against a normal, say, 100-watt tube amp? So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna plug this in, we'll take it for a little test drive, and then we're gonna shoot it out in a mix. And we're going to use the Achilles heel of all guitar tone snobs out there in YouTube land. And that is the blind test. The test where you're going to have to actually use your ears and pick out where the solid state amp is. I'm just curious how many people can actually do it without any kind of visual cues. Anyway, let's plug this thing in and see what it'll do. All right, so I just sat down and I did a blind test mix for you guys. It's going to be coming up in a minute or two. And as I was working away on this, I thought, hang on a second. I don't want to demo the amp right now because I don't want to give away how it sounds. I really want to hear your guys' opinions on how it stacks up against real tube amps, just going into a mix with no preconceptions and nothing to give it away. I mean, because let's face it here, every amp does have its own unique sound. Not nearly as much as, say, changing out a speaker, but yeah, amps are voiced a little bit differently. But here's the thing. I got a lot of feedback on the video I did with Mendel and Rich Bischoff, and a lot of you guys went on and on and on about how bad the Orange sounded because not tubes. Let me show you what I mean. I want you guys to hear exactly the kind of feedback I'm getting before I run this full mix, because I think this is really important stuff.
Sounds very solid state. Buzzy with a rounded soft attack. No deep piano lows, no 3D tube sound or feel under the fingers. I can't believe people think this sounds just as good or just as good as tubes.
Piano lows? I thought we were playing guitar! Seriously, dude, what the fuck is that bullshit all about? Oh, please, Van, get over yourself. Ugh, tube snobs, gotta love them.
I waited the whole video for this to not sound like a papery solid state amp, and it never happened. This amp does not sound good.
Well, thank you for that amazing observation there, Jared. I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much for bringing your well-developed sense of hearing into the conversation, letting us all know exactly how you feel, because apparently there are some of us out here who are just too fucking thick in the head to understand how amazing tube amps sound compared to solid state.
It all depends. If you're looking for cleans or distortion, yeah, I'd say tubes are overrated. But if you want that Kiss by Overdrive sound, that flavored clean sound, Jerry Garcia, Chuck Berry, there's just no way to get it with solid state.
Oh, I don't know. We had Rich Bischoff playing at the end of the video. I thought Rich was doing a pretty good job of that sort of thing. But then again, Kissed by Overdrive is not what this channel is about. It never has been, and that never ceases to amaze me. How many guitar players come in on this channel and start making comments? Oh, well, you're using too much distortion. It's a fucking metal channel! What do we do on a metal channel? That's right, we record metal! Fucking guitar players, I swear, you guys are really going out of your way to make the bass players look smart.
No, it doesn't, clickbait! That amp sounds like shit compared to tubes. It's just an oversized modeler with only one sound.
Okay, it sounds like shit compared to tubes. Only one sound. Hang on, isn't that what every fucking tube amp in existence does, is only one sound? Did you just describe every Marshall ever made?
Sounds dry and lifeless.
Okay, man, your words, not mine.
Sounds thin, fizzy, and flaccid. Can't beat tubes.
Well, Brendan, thanks so much for chiming in there. I think we've got enough comments here. I think we got the general theme from the solid state haters. All right, so now for the blind shootout. So what I did here was I used 4 different amps. I used the orange Super Crush 100, you know, the dull and lifeless, thin and fizzy solid state amp. And then I used 3 absolute top of the heap tube amp. Of course, I used the Soldano. I also used the Rev generator and my PV5150 as well. And I did this mix like I would do a typical metal mix. And that is, I used 4 rhythm tracks, 2 using the amps distortion and 2 using the Rev Northern Mauler, my signature distortion pedal, just to add a little bit of that Swedish chainsaw grind into the sound. And for the lead tracks, we just used pure amp distortion. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to run a blind test. There will be no visual cues here for this mix. I want you guys just using your hearing to tell me when the solid state amp is playing. I'm really curious if anybody can pick this out in a mix. What I want is I want you guys to use those amazing superhuman hearing skills you guys go on and on and on and on about every time I play a video. But of course, we're going to do it so you guys actually have to use your ears and not your eyes. So I'm taking a wild guess that not many people are actually going to be able to pick out the orange in the context of a full mix. That's just my hypothesis. I could be completely wrong. Hell, I'd like to be wrong. I'd like to be shocked to hell. Hopefully somebody's going to get this right. Now, I've got timestamps written down. I know exactly when the orange is going to be playing and when the other amps are going to be playing. And next week, I'm going to have a reveal video. But I want to hear from you guys. I want you to tell me when the thin and fizzy and flaccid sounding solid state amp is playing that doesn't have those beautiful piano lows, whatever the fuck that means. I want to hear from you guys. Let me know when it's playing, because apparently this should be super easy to pick out in a blind test, because if the amp sounds as bad as you guys say it does, there should be no problem whatsoever. Hit it! We're back. Now, here's the thing. I've been a solid state player since like the late 80s and early 90s. My first really good amp was actually a Gallien-Kruger 250 ml. It was a little stereo lunchbox unit that weighed half a ton. I used to use that when I was in college so I could take my amp on the bus with me and bring it to practices and whatnot and plug into various other cabs and whatnot. Great fucking amp, sounded great. Made famous by Iron Maiden on the Somewhere in Time album. That was the amp that they used then. But I mean, like, solid state amps go way back, and even in the 60s, guys were making landmark records using solid state amps. Most notably, John Fogerty, he used a solid state custom on all the Creedence records. Of course, you know, numerous guys have gone on to play solid state amps and just get really amazing tones. Ty Tabor from King's X, if you go put on Gretchen Goes to Nebraska, what a great tone. That's a solid state Gibson amp, actually. And of course, in the 90s, Dimebag Darrell turned the world on its head using a solid state Randall. wow, what a fucking tone that guy had. So when it comes to people complaining about solid state amps, honestly, I just don't get it. With all the amazing records done with solid state amps, it just doesn't make any sense to me. But ultimately though, I want to hear from you guys. I want you to tell me where you think the solid state amp is playing. And next week I'll do a follow-up and we'll take a little bit closer look at the Orange Super Crush 100 because I think it's a really great amp for a pretty damn reasonable price. Anyway, hope to hear from you guys. Leave a comment below and I'll see you back here next week.